I found my husband in the basement with my assistant. That was the moment everything I thought I knew shattered into 1,000 pieces. The question I kept asking myself wasn't just why, it was how long. How long had I been the fool? How long had they been planning this? And most importantly, what were they really after? Let me back up for a second. My name is Sandra Taylor. I'm 59 years old. I've been married to Ben Taylor for 38 years. We built what looked like a perfect life together in a quiet suburb outside of Hartford, Connecticut. Big house with white columns, circular driveway, the kind of place people slow down to admire when they drive past. But that afternoon, standing at the top of the basement stairs, watching my husband kiss a woman half his age, I realized I'd been living in a house of cards, and someone was about to blow it all down. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my half-days at the office. I ran the legal department at Taylor Holdings, the family company my father built from nothing. Real estate development, mostly commercial properties scattered across New England. My father died 3 years ago and left everything to me. Not Ben. Me. That detail matters more than I understood at the time. I came home early that day because I had a splitting headache, the kind that makes your vision blur at the edges. I just wanted to take some aspirin and lie down in the dark. The house was quiet when I walked in. Ben's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. He usually played golf on Tuesday afternoons. I set my purse on the kitchen counter. My reading glasses were somewhere in that purse, but I couldn't find them. My hands were shaking a little from the headache. I poured myself a glass of water from the tap. The kitchen smelled like the lemon dish soap our housekeeper used. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. I heard something then. A laugh. Low and breathy, coming from downstairs. We rarely use the basement anymore. It used to be where we kept my father's wine collection. Italian vintages he'd spent decades acquiring. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to go down there much. Too many memories of him showing me the labels, teaching me about terroir and aging, talking about legacy. But that laugh pulled me toward the basement door like a fish on a hook. I opened the door slowly. The stairs creaked under my weight. I've always been careful going down those stairs. Bad knees, too many years in heels. I heard voices now. Ben's voice, and a woman's voice. Not just any woman. I recognized that voice. Kate McDonald, my assistant, 28 years old, Yale Law School graduate, sharp as a knife. I'd hired her 6 months ago because she was hungry and smart and reminded me of myself at that age. She wanted to climb the ladder fast. I thought I was giving her a chance. I reached the bottom of the stairs. The basement was dim, just one lamp on in the corner. And there they were, on the leather sofa my father used to sit on when he came down here to think. Ben had his shirt off. Kate's blouse was unbuttoned. They were kissing. His hands were in her hair. She was laughing between kisses, laughing. Like this was fun, like my whole life was just a game they were playing. I must have made a sound, a gasp or a choke or something, because they both froze. Ben's face went white. Kate just looked at me. No shame, no embarrassment, just this cool, calculating look, like she was doing math in her head, figuring out her next move. Ben scrambled up, started buttoning his shirt wrong, stuttering. Sandra, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. You have to understand. The same lines every cheater says, the same pathetic script. I just stood there. My headache was gone. Everything was crystal clear now. Too clear. Every detail burned into my brain. The wine bottles on the shelf behind them. The old Persian rug under their feet. The lamp casting shadows on the wall. This was my father's place, his sanctuary, and they'd turned it into their dirty little hideout. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at both of them and said, "Get out." Ben started toward me. "Sandra, please, we need to talk about this." I held up my hand. "Get out of my house. Now." Kate grabbed her jacket. She walked past me without a word. Her shoulder brushed mine. She smelled like expensive perfume, the kind that costs $200 a bottle. I wondered if Ben bought it for her. She went up the stairs, high heels clicking on wood. The front door opened and closed. Ben was still standing there, still trying to talk. 38 years, Sandra. You can't just throw that away. We can work through this. I looked at him, really looked at him. At 61, he was still handsome in that silver fox way. But I saw something new in his face now, something I'd missed before. Calculation. He wasn't begging because he loved me. He was negotiating, trying to keep something he valued, and it wasn't our marriage. I walked past him, went upstairs, locked myself in our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were steady now, no more shaking. I picked up my phone, stared at the screen. I could call my sister, I could call a lawyer, I could call our pastor, but I didn't call anyone, not yet, because I needed to understand something first. What were they really after? This wasn't just about sex. Kate was ambitious. Ben was comfortable. There had to be more to this story, and I was going to find out what. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me where you're watching from. Just a reminder, this is a fictional dramatization for entertainment only. It's not professional legal, medical, or financial advice. Viewer discretion is advised. Enjoy the rest of the video. Let me tell you what you need to know about my marriage, about Taylor Holdings, about everything I thought was solid ground under my feet. Ben and I met in college. I was 21. He was 23. He was charming, funny. He made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We got married right after I graduated. My father didn't approve at first. He thought Ben was too smooth, too interested in the family business. But eventually, my father came around. Ben worked in sales for Taylor Holdings. He was good at it, closed big deals, made clients feel special. For 38 years, we worked side by side. I thought we were a team. My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack. He was at his desk going over contracts when it happened. I found him when I came in early that morning. He was slumped over his papers, coffee mug still warm. I called 911, but it was too late. He was 79 years old. He'd built Taylor Holdings from a single apartment building into a portfolio worth $70 million, and he left all of it to me. 100% ownership. Ben got nothing directly. The will was clear. My father told me once, years before he died, that he trusted me to make the right decisions. He said legacy isn't about blood. It's about values, about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Ben took the will hard. He tried not to show it. But I saw the way his jaw tightened when the lawyer read it aloud, the way he looked at me across the conference table, like I'd stolen something from him. But he never said anything, just smiled, said we were in this together. What's yours is mine, right, Sandra? That's what marriage means. I believed him. I made him executive vice president, gave him signing authority on contracts under $500,000, put his name on the company letterhead. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was honoring our partnership. Now, sitting on my bed with my phone in my hand, I wondered what I'd actually done. I wondered if I'd handed him the keys to dismantle everything my father built. And I wondered if Kate McDonald was just the affair or if she was part of something bigger. I didn't sleep that night. Ben tried the bedroom door a few times. Sandra, please, we need to talk. I ignored him, heard him finally go down the hall to the guest room. I lay in the dark thinking about everything. About the last 6 months since Kate joined the company, about the board meetings where Ben kept pushing to modernize our portfolio, about the way he wanted to sell some of our older properties and reinvest in luxury condos in Boston, about how Kate always had the legal research ready to back up his proposals, fresh data, market analysis, projections showing massive returns. I'd said no every time. Those older properties were my father's foundation. Rent-stabilized apartments, small commercial spaces for family businesses. They weren't flashy, but they were steady. They were ethical. My father believed in providing affordable space. He believed in community. Ben said I was being sentimental, said we were leaving money on the table. But I held firm. I had final say. 100% ownership meant 100% control, or so I thought. The next morning, I got up early, showered, put on my navy suit, the one I wore to important meetings. I didn't look at Ben when I left the house. Drove to the office in silence. Rain was starting to fall. Light drops on the windshield. The radio was playing some old song I didn't recognize. I turned it off. I needed quiet, needed to think. I got to the office at 7. No one else was there yet. I went straight to Kate's desk. Her workspace was neat, too neat, not a paper out of place. I knew I was crossing a line, but I didn't care. I opened her desk drawer, found her calendar, appointment book, the kind people still use when they don't want things in a digital trail. I flipped through it, saw notes in her handwriting, abbreviations, initials, BT. That was Ben. Meeting after meeting, some at lunch, some marked 5 p.m. or later, after work hours. But there was something else. letters and numbers that looked like property codes. Taylor Holdings used a numbering system for our buildings. I recognized a few of them, some of our most valuable commercial properties. And next to those numbers, Kate had written dollar amounts, big numbers, 7 figures, and one word that made my blood run cold: conversion. I heard footsteps in the hall, someone coming in early. I closed the drawer, stood up. My assistant manager, Patricia, appeared in the doorway. "Sandra, you're here early. You okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just getting a head start on the week." Patricia nodded, hesitated, then said, "I heard Kate called in sick today. Won't be in all week. Said it's a family emergency." Of course she did. Of course she was avoiding me. Smart girl. She knew I'd fire her on the spot if she walked through that door. But I needed her gone legally, carefully. I needed to figure out what she and Ben were planning before I made any moves. I thanked Patricia, went to my office, closed the door, opened my computer, started going through files, looking for anything that would explain those numbers in Kate's calendar, those conversion plans. It took me 3 hours, but I found it, hidden in a subfolder in our shared drive, a proposal, dated 2 months ago, authored by Kate McDonald and Ben Taylor. It was a detailed plan to convert 12 of our older rent-stabilized properties into luxury condos. The numbers were staggering, projected profits of $45 million over 3 years. But it required selling off the properties first, restructuring ownership, and it needed my signature as primary owner, my approval, my consent. The proposal had been professionally done. Charts, market research, legal precedents. It was the kind of package you bring to a board when you want to push something through. But they'd never brought it to me, never mentioned it. They'd just been preparing, building a case, waiting for the right moment. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. At the bottom of the document was a signature line, mine, already filled in. My name in a digital font that looked close enough to my actual signature that it might pass a casual glance. They were going to forge my approval. Or maybe they already had. Maybe documents were already filed somewhere. Maybe lawyers I didn't know about were already moving pieces on a board I couldn't see. I sat back in my chair. Rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the window. I could hear voices in the outer office, people arriving for the day, normal workday sounds. But nothing was normal anymore. I picked up my phone. This time I did make a call, but not to a lawyer. Not yet. I called my father's oldest friend, Richard Morrison. He'd been my father's attorney for 40 years, handled the estate, drew up the will. He was 81 years old now, retired officially, but he still kept an office downtown, still answered his own phone. "Sandra," Richard said when he heard my voice. "What's wrong?" "I could hear it in your voice. Something's wrong." I told him everything, the basement, the affair, the proposal, the forged signature. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, "Sandra, listen to me very carefully. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Don't let Ben know you found that proposal. And get copies of everything, every document, every email, every file. Put them somewhere safe, somewhere he can't access. Do you understand?" I understood, but I asked him the question that was eating me alive. "Richard, can he take the company from me? Can he and Kate actually do this?" Richard sighed. It was a heavy sound, the sound of a man who'd seen too much betrayal in his career. "With your father's will, you have absolute control. But if they've been forging documents, filing false paperwork, creating shell companies, they could tie you up in court for years. They could bleed the company dry in legal fees. They could turn your board against you, make you look incompetent, make you look like you're the one causing problems. It's not about taking the company, Sandra. It's about making you so desperate that you'll sign it away just to end the fight." That's when I understood. This wasn't just an affair. This was a hostile takeover, dressed up as a marriage. Ben had been waiting, maybe for years, waiting for my father to die, waiting for me to inherit. And then he'd found Kate, young, ambitious, willing to do whatever it took to climb. She'd give him legal cover, professional credibility, and probably more than that. Probably promises of what they'd build together once they pushed me out. Once they had my father's legacy in their hands. I had 30 days. That's what Richard told me. In 30 days, there was a scheduled board meeting, the quarterly review. Ben had been pushing to add new board members, friends of his, business associates he'd been whining and dining for months. He needed board votes to pressure me. to make me look isolated, old-fashioned, out of touch. If he packed the board with his people, he could make my life impossible. He could force votes on everything, make me fight for every decision, wear me down until I gave up. So I had 30 days to protect my father's company, to protect myself, to figure out how deep this betrayal went, and to decide what kind of person I was going to be on the other side of it. I spent the rest of that week quietly gathering evidence. I copied files, saved emails to a personal drive. I found correspondence between Ben and Kate that made me sick. Not love letters. Worse, strategy memos, talking about me like I was an obstacle, like I was a problem to solve. One email from Kate to Ben said, "She trusts you completely. That's our advantage. We just need to be patient." Another one from Ben said, "After the board meeting, we make our move. She won't have a choice. I found shell companies, created 6 months ago, registered in Delaware, Ben's name on the paperwork, Kate listed as corporate counsel. They were setting up infrastructure to receive assets, to hold properties once they were transferred. They'd been planning this for half a year, maybe longer. Every dinner where Ben asked about my day, every morning where he kissed me goodbye, every time he said he loved me. All of it was lies, all of it was strategy. But here's what they didn't know. My father taught me something when I was young. He said, "Sandra, never let anyone see all your cards. Always keep something in reserve. Always have a backup plan." And I did. I had something they didn't know about, something my father had put in place years ago, a clause in the company bylaws that only 3 people knew existed. My father, Richard Morrison, and me. The clause said that in the event of attempted fraud or misconduct by any officer of the company, the primary owner could immediately suspend all signing authority and remove any officer without board approval. It was an emergency break. My father put it in after he'd seen too many family businesses destroyed by internal coups. He'd seen partners betray each other, seen children push out parents. He wanted to make sure I could protect the company if I ever needed to. He never thought it would be my own husband I'd need to protect it from. But I wasn't ready to use that clause yet, because I needed to know something else first. I needed to know who else was involved. Was it just Ben and Kate? Or were there others? Were board members already compromised? Were employees on his side? I couldn't swing the axe until I knew exactly who would fall. That's when I made a mistake. A small one. But it mattered. I was having coffee with my sister Ellen the next Sunday. We met at a diner near her house, a place we'd been going to for years. Red vinyl booths and waitresses who knew our orders by heart. I told Ellen everything. I needed to tell someone. The weight of carrying this alone was crushing me. Ellen listened. Her face got harder with every word. When I finished, she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Sandra, you need to divorce him. Today. Right now. You need to file papers and lock him out and take back your life." I knew she was right. But I said, I need to secure the company first. If I file for divorce now, he'll know I'm on to him. He'll accelerate whatever plan he has. I need more time. Ellen shook her head. "You're being too careful. He's already betrayed you. What are you waiting for? Permission to protect yourself?" That hit me hard, because maybe she was right. Maybe I was stalling. Maybe part of me still hoped this was all a misunderstanding, that there was some explanation that would make it hurt less. But there wasn't. I knew that. Deep down, I knew that. The man I married didn't exist anymore. Maybe he never had. I drove home that afternoon thinking about what Ellen said. The rain had stopped. Sun was breaking through the clouds. Everything looked clean and bright. Deceptive. I pulled into my driveway. Ben's car was there. I sat in my car for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, trying to decide if I could go inside and act normal. If I could sit across from him at dinner and pretend I didn't know what he was. I went inside. Ben was in the kitchen, cooking. He'd made pasta, my favorite, mushroom cream sauce. The smell filled the house. He smiled when he saw me. "Sandra, perfect timing. Dinner's almost ready." He was acting like nothing had happened, like I hadn't caught him with Kate, like we hadn't had the worst week of our marriage. He was just smiling and stirring sauce and playing the devoted husband. I set my purse down, washed my hands at the sink. My reflection in the window over the sink looked strange, tired, older. I turned around, looked at Ben. He was setting the table, putting out wine glasses. He'd opened a bottle of red, one of my father's Italian vintages from the basement. The symbolism made me want to scream, but I sat down. Let him serve me. Let him pour wine. Let him pretend. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Ben said, "Sandra, I know this week has been difficult. I know I hurt you. But I want you to know that what you saw, it didn't mean anything. It was a moment of weakness, a stupid, meaningless mistake. Kate means nothing to me. You're my wife. You're my partner. We've built a life together. I'm begging you to forgive me, to give me another chance." I took a sip of wine. It was good wine. My father had great taste. I looked at Ben across the table. He looked sincere, eyes soft, voice gentle. If I didn't know what I knew, I might have believed him. I might have thought this was real remorse, real love, but I saw through it now. I saw the calculation. He needed me calm, cooperative, willing to sign things, willing to trust him. This dinner was just another strategy, just another move on the board. I said, "I need time, Ben. I need time to process this, to figure out if I can forgive you." He nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." He reached across the table, tried to take my hand. I pulled back, not ready for that yet. He looked hurt, but he nodded, said he understood. That night, I lay in bed thinking about my father, about what he would do if he were here. He was a fighter. He came from nothing, built everything with his own hands and his own mind. He taught me to be strong, to stand up for what's right, to never let anyone push me around. But he also taught me to be smart, to think 3 moves ahead, to never act from emotion when strategy was what you needed. So I made a plan, a real plan, not just gathering evidence and hoping for the best. I was going to let Ben think he was winning, let him think I was broken, confused, willing to do whatever he suggested just to save our marriage. And while he thought that, I was going to dismantle everything he'd built, every shell company, every forged document, every lie. I was going to take it all apart, and then, at the board meeting in 30 days, I was going to show everyone exactly who Ben Taylor really was. But first, I needed help, real help, the kind that doesn't leave fingerprints. I called Richard Morrison again, asked him to recommend a forensic accountant, someone who could trace money, find hidden assets, build a case that would hold up in court. Richard gave me a name, Patricia Chen, former FBI, specialized in corporate fraud. He said she was expensive but worth every penny. She doesn't lose, Sandra, and she doesn't quit until she's found everything. I met Patricia the next day. Her office was in a nondescript building downtown. No fancy lobby, no receptionist, just a plain door with her name on it. She was 50-ish, short gray hair, sharp eyes behind black-framed glasses. She shook my hand, firm grip, said, "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. Even if you think it's not relevant, tell me," I told her. It took an hour. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, didn't interrupt, didn't react, just wrote. When I finished, she looked up, said, "You have enough for a fraud case, probably enough for criminal charges if we can prove the forged signatures were used in filings. But here's what I need from you. I need access to your company accounts. I need login credentials. I need permission to pull records going back at least 2 years. And I need you to not tell anyone you hired me. Not your sister, not your friends, no one. Can you do that?" I said yes. She handed me a contract. I signed it. She said she'd have a preliminary report in 2 weeks, maybe sooner. She said, "One more thing. If your husband or his lawyer ask where money is going, tell them you're paying for grief counseling, for your father's death. People accept that. It's private. It's emotional. They won't push. Smart." I liked her. I liked that she thought like my father, always 3 steps ahead, always covering her tracks. I went home. Ben was there, watching golf on TV. He looked up when I came in, asked how my day was. I said it was fine. Said I'd been to lunch with an old college friend. Not technically a lie. Patricia had gone to school on the East Coast. Different school, different time, but close enough to feel true when I said it. Ben nodded, went back to his golf. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Kept thinking about the 30-day clock, about the board meeting, about what would happen when I finally made my move. Would people believe me? Or would they think I was a bitter wife making things up? Would Ben have a countermove I hadn't anticipated? Would I lose everything trying to save it? I got up, went downstairs, poured myself a glass of water, stood at the kitchen window looking out at the dark yard. The trees were shadows. The grass was wet from earlier rain. Everything was still. quiet. I thought about my father standing at this same window, all those nights when he couldn't sleep, when he was worried about a deal, about making payroll, about keeping his promises to the families who rented from him. He used to tell me that the hardest part of business wasn't the competition. It was staying true to your values when it would be easier to compromise, when it would be more profitable to cut corners. He said, "Sandra, you'll face that choice 100 times. And every time you make the right choice, you build something real, something that lasts." I was facing that choice now. I could make this easier on myself. I could agree to Ben's plan, sell the properties, convert them, make millions, live a comfortable, wealthy life, keep my marriage intact, at least on paper, pretend I didn't know about Kate, pretend I didn't see what I saw. A lot of women would make that choice. No one would blame me, but I'd know. I'd know I betrayed my father's legacy. I'd know I chose money over integrity, and I couldn't live with that. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror knowing I'd let Ben win, so I was going to fight, even if it meant losing everything, even if it meant being alone, even if it meant my name dragged through the mud and my reputation questioned. I was going to fight because that's what my father taught me. That's who I was. 2 weeks passed. Patricia called, said she had her preliminary report, said I needed to see it in person. Couldn't discuss it over the phone. I met her at her office. She had a folder on her desk, thick, full of papers. She slid it across to me, said, "It's worse than you thought." I opened the folder, started reading. Ben hadn't just been planning to convert properties. He'd already started moving money. Small amounts, 50,000 here, 75,000 there. Transfers from Taylor Holdings accounts into the shell companies, disguised as operational expenses, legal fees, consulting costs. But the money wasn't going to legitimate vendors. It was going to companies that didn't exist, companies that Ben and Kate controlled. Over the last 6 months, they'd siphoned almost $3 million. My hands started shaking. Patricia said, "There's more. They've been meeting with developers, showing them your properties, promising sales that you haven't approved, taking deposits, off-book deposits that are going into accounts you don't have access to. They're selling your assets before they even own them. This is sophisticated fraud. This is criminal." I felt sick. $3 million, deals made behind my back, promises to buyers. If those deals fell through because I refused to sell, Taylor Holdings could be sued. We could be liable for deposits we never received, for contracts we didn't authorize. Ben was setting me up, not just to lose the company, to lose everything, to be financially destroyed, to be seen as incompetent, unreliable, someone who couldn't honor her commitments. I asked Patricia, "What do I do?" She looked at me hard, said, "You have 2 options. Option 1, you go to the police, file criminal charges, let the district attorney handle it. But that's slow, that's public, that's messy. Your company's reputation gets dragged through every news outlet. Your customers lose confidence. Your tenants panic. Your vendors start demanding payment up front. You might win in the end, but you could lose the company in the process." "What's option 2?" I asked. "Option 2, she said. "You use what we found to force a settlement. You confront Ben with the evidence. You offer him a choice. He walks away clean, gives up any claim to the company, signs a separation agreement, returns every penny he stole, or you go to the police and he goes to prison." Most fraudsters take the deal. They're cowards. They talk big when they think they're getting away with it, but they fold when they're caught. I thought about that, thought about what felt right, what my father would do. He'd want justice, but he'd also want the company protected. He'd want the tenants protected, the employees, the legacy. He wouldn't care about punishing Ben if it meant destroying everything else in the blast radius. I chose option 2, but I added something. I said, "I want him to know I won. I want him to understand that I saw through him, that I was smarter, that he underestimated me. Can we do that?" Patricia smiled. First time I'd seen her smile. She said, "Absolutely. We're going to make sure he knows exactly who beat him." The board meeting was in 1 week. Ben had been busy. I could tell. He'd been making calls, having lunch meetings, playing golf with board members, building his coalition. He thought he was setting the stage for his big move. He thought he'd get up at that meeting and propose his conversion plan and have the votes to pressure me into it. He thought he was playing chess and I was just sitting at home, crying into my wine. He had no idea what was coming. 3 days before the meeting, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. but something made me pick up. A woman's voice, nervous, young. She said, "Mrs. Taylor, this is Amy Brennan. I used to work at Taylor Holdings, in accounting. I left 4 months ago. I need to talk to you about something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." I met Amy at a coffee shop. She was 26, blonde, looked scared. She sat down across from me, ordered nothing, just twisted her hands in her lap. She said, "I don't know if this matters anymore, but I need to tell someone. When I worked at Taylor Holdings, Mr. Taylor asked me to process some payments. He said they were legitimate operating expenses. He had all the right paperwork. But something felt off. The amounts were weird. The vendors were companies I'd never heard of. I asked him about it. He told me not to worry, said it was above my pay grade, said I should just process the payments and mind my own business." "What did you do?" I asked. "I processed them." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared of losing my job. I needed the money. My mom was sick. I had bills. So I just did what he asked. But it ate at me. I knew something was wrong. I knew I was helping him do something bad. So I quit. Told him I got a better offer somewhere else. But really, I just couldn't stand being part of whatever he was doing." "Did you keep any records?" I asked. She nodded, pulled a thumb drive out of her purse, slid it across the table. I copied everything before I left, all the payment requests, all the invoices, all the approvals. "I don't know if it's useful, but I thought you should have it." I took the thumb drive, looked at her. "Amy, why are you giving this to me now?" She looked down at her hands. "Because I heard you and Mr. Taylor are having problems. I heard he might try to take over the company, and I couldn't let that happen. Your father was a good man. He helped my family once. When my mom got sick, we couldn't pay rent. He gave us 3 months free, told us to take care of ourselves, said the rent would be there when we were ready. No one does that anymore. No one cares like he did. I can't let someone like your husband destroy what he built." I thanked her, gave her my card, told her if she needed a reference or a job to call me. She smiled, said maybe someday. Then she left. I sat there alone with the thumb drive, thinking about my father, about the kind of man he was, about the kindness he showed people when no one was looking. That's what Ben and Kate would never understand. That's what they couldn't measure on their spreadsheets. The loyalty my father earned. The people who remembered him. The ones who'd stand up for his legacy when it mattered. I gave the thumb drive to Patricia. She called me that night, said, "This is the smoking gun. Amy's records match everything we found. They corroborate every transfer, every false invoice, every fraudulent payment. With this, we can prove intent. We can prove he knew exactly what he was doing. This isn't a mistake. This isn't an accounting error. This is deliberate theft." One day before the board meeting, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to my father's grave. It was early morning, cold. The cemetery was quiet, just birds and wind. I stood in front of his headstone, simple gray granite, his name, his dates, and the words he chose himself, rest earned, not given. I told him everything, about Ben, about Kate, about the fraud and the lies and the betrayal. I told him I was scared, that I didn't know if I was strong enough to do this, that I wished he was here to tell me what to do. And then I cried. For the first time since I found them in the basement, I let myself cry. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for my marriage, for my trust, for the life I thought I had, for all the wasted years. When I stopped crying, I felt something shift. I felt lighter, clear, certain. My father wasn't there to tell me what to do, but I already knew what he'd say. He'd say, "Sandra, you've got everything you need. You're smarter than them. You're tougher than them, and you're fighting for something real. They're just fighting for money. Money is easy. Integrity is hard. You've already won. You just need to show them." The board meeting was at 10 a.m. I got there early, set up my laptop. Patricia was there. Richard Morrison was there. They sat in the back. Observers, witnesses. The board members filed in. 7 of them. 3 were longtime friends of my father. 4 were newer. Ben's people. They all nodded at me. Polite? Professional? They had no idea what was about to happen. Ben came in last. He was wearing his best suit, navy pinstripe, red tie. He looked confident, relaxed. He sat down across from me, smiled. "Sandra, thank you for being here. I know we have a lot to discuss today." I smiled back. "We certainly do." The meeting started. Normal agenda items, financials, lease renewals, maintenance updates. Ben was patient, waiting for his moment. Finally, at the 40-minute mark, he cleared his throat, said, "I'd like to propose something, a strategic initiative that could significantly increase our profitability and position us for long-term growth." He opened his laptop, started pulling up slides, charts and graphs and projections. He walked through his conversion plan, the properties he wanted to sell, the luxury condos he wanted to build, the $45 million in projected profits. The board members leaned in, interested. The numbers were impressive. Even my father's old friends looked intrigued. Ben was good at this. He made it sound reasonable, responsible, forward-thinking. He said, "I know change is difficult. I know Sandra has strong feelings about these properties, but we have a fiduciary duty to our shareholders, to ourselves, to maximize value. We can't let sentiment hold us back." When he finished, he looked at me, said, "Sandra, I hope you'll consider this seriously. I think it's the right move for Taylor Holdings. I think your father would have understood that business evolves, that we have to adapt." I let the silence sit for a moment, looked around the table. Then I said, "Ben, before we discuss your proposal, I'd like to share some information I've recently discovered. Information that's relevant to this conversation." I opened my laptop, pulled up Patricia's report, said, "Over the past 6 months, someone has been stealing from Taylor Holdings. Specifically, $3 million has been transferred from our accounts into shell companies. False invoices were created, false consulting fees, false legal expenses. The money was moved systematically, deliberately, with the clear intent to defraud the company." The room went quiet. Board members exchanged glances. Ben's face went white. He said, "Sandra, what are you talking about? I don't understand." I looked at him, said, "I think you understand perfectly. The shell companies were registered in Delaware 6 months ago. Your name is on the paperwork. Kate McDonald is listed as corporate counsel. The bank accounts are under your control. I have copies of every transfer, every invoice, every signature, and I have a witness, a former employee who processed these payments at your request. She kept records. She's willing to testify." Ben stood up. "This is insane. This is a misunderstanding. You're confused, Sandra. You're upset about our personal issues, and you're lashing out." He looked at the board. "She's been under a lot of stress since her father died, since our marriage problems. She's not thinking clearly." I stayed calm, said, "I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Ben. Clearer than I've been in years." Patricia Chen, standing at the back of the room, raised her hand, said, "I'm a forensic accountant. I've reviewed all of Taylor Holdings' financial records for the past 2 years. Everything Mrs. Taylor just said is accurate. I've prepared a full report. It's been provided to your attorneys. I suggest you review it carefully." Richard Morrison stood, said, "I'm Richard Morrison. I was Mr. Taylor Sr.'s attorney, and I currently represent Mrs. Taylor and Taylor Holdings. We are prepared to file criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. However, Mrs. Taylor is willing to discuss a settlement. If you're interested, Ben, I suggest you retain counsel immediately." Ben looked around the room, looked at the board members. They were staring at him. Shock, disgust, confusion. His whole plan was falling apart in real time. He tried once more, said, "Sandra, please, we can talk about this privately. You don't want to do this. Think about what you're doing to our marriage, to us." I stood up, looked him in the eye, said, "You did this to us, Ben, not me. You betrayed me. You betrayed my father. You betrayed every person who trusted you. And now you're going to face the consequences. You have 24 hours to respond to our settlement offer. If you don't, we go to the police. Your choice." I walked out. Patricia and Richard followed me. Behind me, I heard chaos. Board members shouting questions, Ben trying to talk over them. But I didn't look back. I just kept walking, out of the conference room, down the hall, into the elevator. I didn't breathe until the doors closed. Then I leaned against the wall. Let the relief wash over me. It was done. I'd made my move. I'd shown them who I was, and I'd won. 22 hours later, Ben's lawyer called Richard, said his client was willing to discuss terms. We met at Richard's office. Ben wasn't there. Just his lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit. He slid a counteroffer across the table. Ben would return $2 million of the $3 million he stole. He'd give up any claim to Taylor Holdings. He'd sign a separation agreement. But he wanted the affair with Kate kept private, wanted a non-disclosure agreement, wanted to save his reputation. Richard looked at me. "It's your call, Sandra. What do you want?" I thought about it. Thought about what I'd gain by exposing everything publicly. The satisfaction, the vindication, but also the damage. To me, to the company, to my father's name. I said he returns all $3 million, every penny. He signs an affidavit admitting to the fraud. That affidavit stays sealed unless he ever tries to claim ownership or control of Taylor Holdings in the future. He signs a separation agreement that includes no spousal support, no division of assets beyond what he brought into the marriage, and he's gone from the company immediately. No transition, no goodbye, just out. Ben's lawyer tried to negotiate. I didn't budge. Finally, he called Ben, spoke quietly, hung up, said, "He agrees, but he wants to see you, one last time, to explain." I said no. I said, "There's nothing to explain. He made his choices. Now he lives with them. Tell him to sign the papers. Tell him I never want to see him again." The papers were signed the next day. Ben moved out of the house that weekend. I wasn't there. I stayed with Ellen. When I came back Sunday night, the house was empty. His clothes were gone, his toiletries, his golf clubs. The basement was exactly as it had been. My father's wine collection still there. Dusty bottles with Italian labels. I went down and sat on that leather sofa, the same sofa where I'd found him with Kate, and I didn't cry. I just sat there, felt the weight of everything that had happened, everything I'd lost, everything I'd saved. Kate was fired the same week. I had HR handle it. Professional, clean, no drama. She'd violated company ethics policies. She'd engaged in conduct that damaged the company's reputation. She was escorted out by security. I heard later she'd moved to Boston, taken a job at a firm that didn't do background checks carefully enough, but that wasn't my problem anymore. She'd made her choices too. The board meeting reconvened 2 weeks later, this time with a new agenda. I proposed changes to the bylaws, stronger ethics requirements, stricter financial oversight, independent audits every quarter. The board approved everything unanimously. My father's friends stayed. Ben's people resigned. We rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. The way my father would have wanted. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Quick and clean. Ben didn't fight. He couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming. He took what little he'd brought into the marriage and left. I heard he moved to Florida, started some kind of consulting business. I didn't care. He was out of my life, out of my company, out of my heart. I'm sitting here now, 6 months after that board meeting, in my father's office. I've made it mine, rearranged the furniture, hung new art, but I kept his desk, the one he worked at for 40 years. It feels right to keep it, like he's still here in some way, still watching over everything. The company is stable, profitable. We've added new properties, not luxury condos, affordable housing, small business spaces, the things my father believed in, the things I believe in. We're growing, but we're growing right. And I sleep at night knowing that. My relationship with Ellen is stronger than ever. She checks on me constantly, too much sometimes, but I'm grateful. She was right when she said I was waiting for permission to protect myself. I was. I was waiting for someone to tell me it was okay to be angry, to fight back, to choose myself over a marriage that was already dead. I don't wait for permission anymore. I'm dating now, casually, nothing serious. There's a man named David I've had dinner with a few times. He's a widower, lost his wife to cancer 3 years ago. He understands grief, understands that some scars don't heal, they just become part of who you are. We're taking it slow, learning each other, learning if we fit. It's nice, comfortable, no pressure, no games, just two adults being honest with each other. I went back to my father's grave last week, stood in the same spot, same cold morning, same quiet. I told him I did it. I protected his legacy, kept the company true to his values, made the hard choices he taught me to make. And I told him I was okay, that I was lonely sometimes, but okay, that I'd found my strength, that I'd remembered who I was. The wind picked up, leaves rustled, and for a second, I swear I felt him there, felt his hand on my shoulder, heard his voice saying what he always said. "You've got this, Sandra. You've always had this. You just needed to believe it." I do believe it now. I believe I'm strong enough to stand alone, smart enough to see through lies, brave enough to fight for what's right, even when it costs me everything. That's my father's real legacy, not the properties or the money or the company name, the values, the integrity, the spine. That's what he gave me, and no one can take that away. Life moves forward. The company thrives. I wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror and like who I see. That's worth more than any marriage, more than any fortune, more than any comfort bought with compromise. I chose integrity over ease. I chose truth over convenience. I chose myself, and I'd make that choice again. There's a box in my office, tucked in the back of a filing cabinet. Inside are all the documents from Ben's fraud case, the affidavit he signed, the settlement agreement, the evidence Patricia gathered. I keep it there as a reminder, not of the betrayal, but of the strength, of what I'm capable of when I stop doubting myself, when I trust my instincts, when I stand up and fight. I also keep one of my father's old photographs. It's from when he was young, maybe 30, standing in front of his first building, a small apartment complex in a rough neighborhood. He's wearing work clothes, hands dirty, huge smile. He looks proud, not of what he owned, but of what he built, of what he did right. That's the face I see when I'm making tough decisions now. That's the standard I hold myself to. Some people ask me if I regret anything, if I wish I'd handled things differently, maybe been more forgiving, more willing to work things out with Ben. The answer is no, not even a little. Ben made his choices long before I found him in that basement. He chose money over love, ambition over loyalty, lies over truth. I just finally saw him clearly. And once you see someone clearly, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the comfortable delusion. You can only go forward with the truth. Kate reached out once, about 2 months after she left, email to my personal address. Said she wanted to apologize, said she was young and stupid and ambitious and she made terrible choices, said she hoped I could forgive her someday. I didn't respond, not because I'm heartless, but because forgiveness isn't something you owe people. It's something you give when it serves your healing. And forgiving Kate wouldn't help me heal. It would just make her feel better about herself. She can live with her choices. That's not my responsibility. The $3 million Ben returned went back into Taylor Holdings. We used it to renovate some of our older properties, updated kitchens, new windows, better insulation. The tenants were thrilled. Some of them wrote me letters thanking me. Those letters are in a folder on my desk. I read them when I'm tired, when I'm questioning if this work matters. They remind me that it does, that my father's vision of business with humanity still means something. Last month, I hired a new assistant. His name is Marcus. He's 42, former Marine, going back to school for his MBA. He's organized, honest, and asks good questions. He doesn't flatter me, doesn't try to anticipate what I want to hear, just tells me the truth. That's what I need. People who will be straight with me, who won't play games, who understand that loyalty is earned through consistency, not charm. The house still feels big sometimes, empty. I've thought about selling it, starting fresh somewhere smaller, but it's paid off. It's mine. And there's something satisfying about being exactly where Ben wanted to push me out of, about standing my ground. So I stay. I've turned the basement into something new, not a wine cellar anymore. I donated most of those bottles. Couldn't look at them without thinking about that day. Now it's a home office, a place I can work late without distractions. I had new furniture brought in, bright lamps, clean lines, no ghosts. I still think about Ben sometimes. Wonder if he feels guilty, if he regrets what he did, if he lies awake at night understanding what he threw away. But mostly I don't think about him. He's part of my past, a chapter that's closed. I'm writing new chapters now, better ones. Chapters about building and creating and staying true to what matters. The board meetings are different now, focused, productive. No more power plays, no more hidden agendas. We're all aligned on mission, on values. We argue sometimes about tactics, about which properties to invest in, about rent increases and maintenance priorities. But we argue honestly, with respect, with the understanding that we're all trying to do right by the legacy my father built. I've started mentoring young women in business through a local university program. I meet with them once a month, share my experiences, answer their questions. I tell them what I wish someone had told me when I was young. That ambition is good, but integrity is better. That shortcuts always cost more than they save. that the people who truly respect you are the ones who'll tell you hard truths. That marriage is partnership, and partnership requires equal investment. That you should never ever let someone make you doubt your own instincts. One of my mentees asked me recently what the biggest lesson from my career has been. I thought about that, about my father building the company, about Ben trying to steal it, about the fight to keep it, about everything I've learned. And I said, the biggest lesson is that power isn't given, it's taken, but taking it responsibly, with ethics, with respect for others, that's the hard part. Anyone can grab power and use it selfishly. It takes real strength to hold power and use it for good. She nodded, wrote it down in her notebook. She reminded me of myself at that age, hungry, smart, a little scared, ready to prove herself. I hope I can help her avoid some of the mistakes I made. Help her see manipulators before they get close. Help her trust herself when everyone else is telling her she's wrong. That's the gift I can give, the gift my father gave me, the wisdom bought with pain. There's a photograph on my desk now. It's from my father's funeral. I'm standing at the grave, Ellen beside me, hundreds of people behind us, tenants, employees, business partners, people whose lives my father touched. I keep that photo there as a reminder. That legacy isn't about money. It's about impact, about how many people you helped, how many lives you made better. That's what I'm building toward. That's what I'll leave behind. I won't lie and say I'm not lonely sometimes, that I don't miss having a partner, someone to share dinner with, to talk about the day with, to make plans with. I do. But I'm learning to be okay alone, to enjoy my own company, to find fulfillment in work and friendships and quiet evenings with a good book. Romance might come again someday. Or it might not. Either way, I'll be okay, because I'm whole on my own. I don't need someone to complete me. I just need someone who compliments me, someone who sees me and respects me and walks beside me as an equal. David might be that person. Time will tell. We're not rushing. We're both too old for games, too experienced with heartbreak. We know what matters: honesty, kindness, shared values, laughter. If we have that, maybe it'll grow into something more. If we don't, we'll stay friends. That's the beauty of dating at this age. There's no desperation, no need to force something that isn't there, just genuine curiosity about whether two lives fit together. The company had its best quarter ever last month, revenue up 18%, occupancy rates at 97%, maintenance costs down through better management, tenant satisfaction scores the highest they've been in 10 years. We're doing it right, growing sustainably, treating people fairly, making my father proud. That's success, not luxury condos and $45 million projections, but steady, ethical growth that lifts everyone up. I testified before the City Planning Commission last week. They were considering a zoning change that would have allowed developers to demolish affordable housing and replace it with high-end apartments. I stood up and talked about my father's philosophy, about the responsibility we have to our communities, about how gentrification doesn't just change neighborhoods, it destroys them. It pushes out families who've lived there for generations. It erases history. It values profit over people. The commission voted down the zoning change. After the hearing, a woman came up to me. She was in her 70s. She said her family had rented from my father for 30 years. She said he kept their rent stable even when the market exploded around them. She said he told her once that housing was a human right, not a luxury commodity. She thanked me for carrying on his work, for remembering that business can be a force for good. That conversation stayed with me, reminded me why I fought so hard, why I couldn't let Ben and Kate turn my father's legacy into just another real estate empire focused on maximizing returns. We're part of something bigger. We have power, and with power comes responsibility. My father understood that. I understand it now. And I'll make sure whoever comes after me understands it too. I've started updating my own will, making sure the company will be protected after I'm gone. I don't have children. Ellen's kids aren't interested in real estate, so I'm setting up a structure, a trust that will keep the company mission-focused, that will prevent anyone from coming in and gutting it for short-term profit. The lawyers say it's complicated, but Richard and I are working through it. Making sure my father's vision outlives all of us. That's the ultimate legacy. Not what you build in your lifetime, but what survives after you're gone. There's a new coffee shop near my office. I've started going there in the mornings. There's a barista named Jenny who knows my order. Regular coffee, black, no sugar. She's a single mom, going to community college at night, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. She rents one of our apartments. When I mentioned that once, her face lit up. She said, "Your company is the only reason I can afford to stay in this city. The rent is fair. The maintenance staff is responsive. It's safe. It's clean. You have no idea how rare that is." She asked me to thank whoever owns the company. I just smiled, said I would. Those are the moments that matter. The small interactions that remind you why you do this work, why you fight through the long nights and the tough decisions and the loneliness. Because on the other side of every policy decision, every rent increase or decrease, every maintenance budget, there are real people, real lives, real families. They're not numbers on a spreadsheet. They're Jenny working 2 jobs to give her kid a better life. They're the elderly couple on a fixed income who can age in place with dignity. They're the small business owner who can afford storefront rent and build something for their community. I think about Ben sometimes and wonder if he ever understood that, if he ever saw past the numbers to the people. I don't think he did. I think he saw opportunity, transactions, deals, but he never saw the humanity at the center of it all. That's why he could steal, why he could betray, why he could look me in the eye and lie. Because he didn't see me as a person. He saw me as an obstacle, a means to an end. And when I stopped being useful, he was ready to discard me. Kate was the same. Ambitious, without ethics, smart without wisdom. She saw me as a stepping stone, saw Ben as a shortcut, saw Taylor Holdings as a prize to be won. But she didn't see the foundation, the decades of trust, the relationships built on kept promises. She thought you could just take it, replace the old with the new, rebrand, renovate, capitalize. She didn't understand that some things can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be shortcutted. You have to earn them, day by day, year by year, with integrity. I've learned to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting Ben longer than I should have, for believing his lies, for wanting so badly to have a partner that I ignored red flags. That's human. We all want to believe the best in people we love. We all want to think our marriages are safe, our partnerships are solid, our foundations are strong. It's not weakness to trust. It's only weakness if you refuse to act once the trust is proven false. And I acted. Maybe not as fast as Ellen wanted, maybe not as decisively as my father would have, but I acted. I gathered evidence, built a case, protected what mattered, and in the end, I won. Not just the legal battle, not just the company, but myself, my self-respect, my dignity, my certainty that I could stand alone and be okay. That's the real victory, the one that matters when all the noise fades. Sunday mornings are my favorite now. I wake up early, make coffee, sit in my kitchen watching the sun come up. No pressure, no performance, no one to impress. Just me and the quiet and the day unfolding. Sometimes Ellen calls. We talk for an hour, about nothing important, about everything. She's proud of me. She tells me that now, says she worried for a while that I'd broken, that the betrayal would crush me. But she sees I'm okay, stronger even, clearer about who I am and what I stand for. I go to church most Sundays, not because I'm particularly religious, but because my father went, because it's community, because the pastor gives good sermons about integrity and service and being the kind of person who leaves the world better than you found it. After church, there's coffee hour. I used to skip it. Too much small talk, too many questions about Ben. But now I stay. I've made friends, real friends, people who knew my father, who understand what I'm trying to preserve. They support me, check in on me, invite me to dinner. That's what community is. Not just neighbors, but people who care, who show up, who remember. There's a woman at church named Dorothy. She's 84, widow for 15 years. She told me once that the first year after her husband died was the hardest, not because she missed him, though she did, but because she had to learn who she was without him. She'd been a wife for 62 years. That was her identity. When he was gone, she had to rebuild herself, figure out what she wanted, what she believed, what made her happy. She said it took her 5 years to really feel whole again. But when she got there, she was happier than she'd ever been, because she was living for herself, making choices that served her joy, not his expectations, not social pressure, just her authentic self. That story gave me hope, reminded me that this is a process, that there's no timeline for healing, that it's okay to still be figuring things out, to still have hard days, to still feel anger or sadness or confusion. That's all part of rebuilding, part of becoming who you're meant to be on the other side of betrayal. I've thought about writing a book, about my experience, about what I learned, about how to spot manipulation, how to trust your instincts, how to fight for yourself even when everyone tells you to compromise. But I'm not sure I'm ready. It's still too fresh, too raw. Maybe in a few years, when I have more distance, more perspective, when I can tell the story without anger, just as facts, as lessons, as hope for other women facing the same choice I faced. For now, I'm focused on the work, on running Taylor Holdings with integrity, on mentoring the next generation, on building a life that feels authentic and meaningful, on being someone my father would be proud of, not just in business, but in character, in how I treat people, in how I show up in the world. That's the legacy that matters. The house is quiet tonight, rain on the windows. I'm in the living room with a cup of tea. There's a fire in the fireplace, the first of the season. It smells like wood smoke and comfort. I'm reading a book about Eleanor Roosevelt, about how she transformed herself after her husband's affair, how she found her own voice, her own power, her own purpose. It's inspiring. Reminds me that I'm not the first woman to face this, not the first to have to choose between comfortable lies and difficult truth. And I won't be the last, but we get through it. We survive. We rebuild. We become stronger, wiser, more certain of who we are. We learn that we don't need anyone to complete us. We're already whole. We just needed to remember it. That's my truth now. That's what I carry forward. That's what I'd tell any woman standing where I stood 6 months ago. You are enough. You are strong enough. You are smart enough. You deserve honesty and respect and partnership. And if you're not getting that, if someone is using you or lying to you or trying to take what's yours, you have the right to fight back. You have the right to choose yourself. You have the right to walk away from anything that doesn't serve your highest good. That's what I did. And I'd do it again. Every time. Without hesitation. Because I'm worth fighting for. My father's legacy is worth fighting for. The values I believe in are worth fighting for. And no amount of comfort or convenience or fear of being alone will ever make me compromise on that again. I'm Sandra Taylor, 59 years old, owner of Taylor Holdings, daughter of a man who taught me that integrity is the foundation of everything worth building, survivor of betrayal, fighter for what's right, and I'm okay, more than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, living the life I'm meant to live, and that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Thanks for watching until the end. If this story touched you, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. As a final reminder, this was a fictional dramatization for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute legal, medical, or financial advice. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next story.